The Browns are looking for win now quarterback solutions in a market where there's just not a ton of those available, right? It's got us talking about maybe you could pry Geno Smith away. Maybe you can pry Kirk Cousins. Maybe you can roll the dice on a contract for Sam Darnold. Hell, let's just throw Justin Fields out there, see what happens, right? Like, so many different suggestions have been put out there. But there is one quarterback who, if the Browns made a move for, I think would actually move the needle, not just in the Browns locker room, but with the fan base itself. Now, again, like anything, just because they make this move wouldn't mean that it would be guaranteed to work out. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with this move. But the one move the Browns can make at quarterback that would make people feel like you're back in win now mode, the one guy you can go grab, well, he's a former Super Bowl champion. He won one as recently as 2021, made his name in the Midwest, and his name is Matthew Stafford. Now, there's some speculation as to if Matthew Stafford will be available. There wasn't a definitive answer given by Sean McVay at the end of his press conference. There was some uncertainty from Matt Stafford. It does not seem like he's planning on retiring, but it does seem like there's some uncertainty about him coming back to the Rams. Now, unlike when we looked at this with Dak Prescott, right, where it would require the Cowboys to eat like a bunch of money in dead cap in that year, the Rams would make not a lot of money, but they would get more cap space than they would lose if they were to trade Matthew Stafford. I think that would be like a couple of $1 million they would get. So it's not unfeasible that they could do this because they do benefit from doing it a little bit, and they might just want to start fresh and see what they can do to get a good pick next year or something like that. Like, I don't know what the Rams' plan would be, but if they would be interested in making a move off of Matthew Stafford and the Browns were somebody interested in grabbing him, it is doable. If you trade for Matthew Stafford, his cap hit in 2025 would be $27 million, and his cap hit in 2026 would be $31 million. This would fit a perfect window for the Cleveland Browns. They're trying to get a quarterback who, at the very least, can make sure that the Browns are able to execute whatever long-term plan they have to get a franchise quarterback to this team. I've noted that the 2026 draft and the 2027 draft feel like better bets to get a quarterback than 2025. This feels like the down year for quarterbacks. It feels like there will be much better prospects in those two drafts. But you got to get to those drafts. If you get Matthew Stafford, you're going to have stable quarterback play for the next 2 years. Matthew Stafford's old. He's 37 this upcoming season. He'll be 38 in 2026. Same age as like Kirk Cousins, but I think he's like 6 months older than Kirk Cousins. So that is what you would be going after. He would be a really, really good bridge quarterback. He's coming off of a pretty good season. But if you do go after Matt Stafford, there are some things you should know if you have not been paying attention to Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford is the definition of a streaky quarterback. Like, Matt Stafford has always been hot streak, cold streak, hot streak, cold streak. When he's on a hot streak, he's fired. For example, let's just look at this season. Matt Stafford started the year for the first 6 weeks with 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, an 83.1 rate, 2 fumbles lost. He took 17 sacks, had 2 big-time throws, 8 turnover-worthy plays, a 58.6 Pro Football Focus grade, which was lower than Deshaun Watson's for weeks 1 through 6. That's how poorly Matthew Stafford was playing. Well, then you get to week 7 to the rest of the season, and he balls. 21 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a passer rating of 99, right? No fumbles lost, only took 11 sacks, a 79.9 Pro Football Focus grade. He has some variance to his game, but he's going to turn the ball over less than like a Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins had 18 total turnovers this season. Matthew Stafford, I believe, only had 10. So you're going to take care of the ball better, which means you have an easier chance to win. Matt Stafford, still a very good play-action quarterback, took 29% of his dropbacks at play-action this year. 10 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 90 Pro Football Focus grade with 1,615 yards. Matt Stafford is still pretty damn good, right? And he comes with the cachet of being a former Super Bowl champion. There's less that you have to worry about in translation than you would with Geno. Geno's not a one-to-one fit with what Kevin wants to do, but I think Geno could fit what Kevin wants to do. With Matthew Stafford, there is no question that he is a fit for how Kevin would want to run this offense. He would be exactly what Kevin wants. Still has a rocket arm, willing to take risks down the field, gonna get chunk plays. Like, think of the good stuff that Joe Flacco was able to give you, a little bit of the turnover chaos, and then you have Matt Stafford, right? If you just dial down the turnovers from what Joe Flacco was doing in this offense and you dial up the crazy arm throws, then you get Matt Stafford. Even at this age, that's what he's like. He's streaky. He's not going to be the most consistent guy. There are going to be like 3-4 weeks if you trade for him where you're like, damn, he's not playing that well. But you're going to be able to do largely what you did in 2023 with him. All right, so what would make the Rams want to let go of Matthew Stafford? Because if they're trading Matthew Stafford, that means that they're definitely not trying to be in win now mode for the upcoming season. You look at the Rams roster, there's some young guys there, but like the guys they won a championship with are aging out. Aaron Donald already retired. Puka Nacua is young, but Cooper Kupp is getting up there in age, right? Like they're starting to age a little bit out there in LA. They need some pieces to put them over the top. I think they would want draft assets in the future, this year, next year. Maybe 2 third-round picks gets this done. Maybe a 3rd and a 4th next year gets this done. But it would probably be some combo of a late day 2 pick and an early day 3 pick in order to get this trade done. And I got to ask you guys, what price do you think would be fair for Matthew Stafford in 2025, given that you're going to get him? You know, I don't know if he has a no trade clause, but I think he can be convinced to waive it for the Cleveland Browns. If you can convince him that the vision for the offense would be better for him as he gets older, you could just point to Joe Flacco and say, hey, look what he did. You know who you are. You know what you're good at. It's an easy translation to see how this works. Look, if the Browns are looking for a helicopter ride out of this disastrous mess that was the Watson trade and Watson contract and what it's left the quarterback position in, getting a Hail Mary in Matthew Stafford, like basically getting somebody who the locker room's going to believe you can win a championship with. I don't know if he's playing at that level anymore, but the guys in the locker room are going to see you trade for a former Super Bowl champion, a guy who's won a Super Bowl not a decade ago, but like recently, and say to themselves, okay, management's trying to win, right? If Miles was any bit concerned about what management's trying to do at quarterback, you bring in Matthew Stafford, they're going to respect that decision. They're going to be excited about that decision, right? Geno Smith's going to come with his questions. He's not proven, but he's had some good years. Kirk Cousins go come with massive questions. Coming off the worst run of his career, Achilles injury. I don't think he's as bad as people think he is, but also Kirk Cousins is never as good as people want him to be. So you got to deal with that whole thing. He's Kirk Cousins. But Matthew Stafford doesn't come with any of those stigmas, doesn't come with any of those questions. You trade for Matthew Stafford, A lot of people in the city of Cleveland are going to get excited. A lot of people in that locker room going to get excited. A lot of people on that coaching staff is going to get excited. But you're still trading for a 37-year-old quarterback. Keep that in mind. Don't forget that. Right? So, and you're trading for a 37-year-old quarterback and hoping he makes it all the way to 38. Which, hey, believe Joe Flacco was like 38 when he had that run in Cleveland. So you have reason to believe it could work. But that's what the Browns would try to make happen. And if you're asking me, what is the best case scenario that could possibly happen? Doesn't have a great chance of happening. Doesn't even have a good chance of happening. But it could be possible because there's not a guarantee that the Rams are going to want to bring back Matthew Stafford. This would be it for the Browns because it's a short-term solution and the Browns need a short-term fix, right? Like there could be an option of trading for Brock Purdy. I don't think that's an option that the Browns would want to go to because that means he's your long-term answer, and there are questions if Brock Purdy would be good enough to put you on equal footing with the quarterbacks in the AFC, and you don't want to spend all that money just to have the same problems that you've been running up against in the AFC in the playoffs, which is you don't got a good enough quarterback. So Brock Purdy wouldn't be a great solution to me, even though you would definitely get decent quarterback play out of him here. You look at Geno Smith again, solid. Like I'd be happy if they got Geno. And I think it's probably the most realistic and solid scenario you can go for, especially since Geno's cheap. Kirk Cousins, all right, man, like it is what it is. I would want some extra insurance behind Kirk Cousins, but okay, I could see it working with Kirk. I'm not going to be naive to that, right? I kind of turned my nose up when Joe Flacco first got signed here because everything I knew about Joe Flacco coming into this. But then, Joe Flacco gets here, gets back in that old thing, and he looks fine. So it could happen with Kirk Cousins. It's not out the realm of possibility, right? I've gone over why I don't think drafting a guy at 2 is a great idea. It's kind of similar thing with Brock Purdy. Best case scenario, you're going to get somebody you're worried isn't good enough to get past the top guys in the AFC. Yeah, to me, this is the best, most probable situation, right? You're not going to get somebody to trade you Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow or something like that. But you get Matthew Stafford, you'd be in a pretty damn good spot, and it would just dramatically change how people feel about everything going on with the Cleveland Browns. This is their Hail Mary. I don't think it's probable, but it is something worth peeking at, right? Like I'm not saying pound the table and say this should happen because it's not that level of probable, but this is something you should keep an eye on. Like, hey, man, do they let go of Matt Stafford? Right? It would certainly be better than like trading for Derek Carr, who is younger, admittedly, right? So Derek Carr would be younger. But if you traded for Derek Carr, you would inherit, let's look at this, a $30 million cap hit this year and a $50 million cap hit next year with 10 of that million guaranteed. And Derek Carr hasn't been remotely as good as like Matthew Stafford has been. So there would be some questions there. So if you're looking for a short-term rental that can get you past these next couple of years so you could draft the guy in 2026 or draft the guy in 2027, and by 2028, you're ready to move on to your next era, or 2027 or 2026, so you're ready to move on to your next era. I think Matthew Stafford is the best short-term rental that could possibly be available. Let me know what you guys think of that possibility. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.